Hello to the good people and to the bad. Bad people need love too.
When it comes to positivity, we all need it.
Write about people whose names are familiar to us now, like Isaiah Thomas.
Those things always work when it comes to putting out your best self.
God has blessed you with a beautiful voice, Chris. Thank you very much for doing this.
Hello to the good people and to the bad people, friends and enemies. And a hearty boom shakalaka to all of you out there. I am Chris Bass. And this is CBI, Chris Bass Interviews. It congregates every Wednesday. That's at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, and 2 p.m. Pacific time, always wanting you to be well where you are. I love my job. And the reason I love my job is because I get a chance to bring on people who I get a chance to talk to, who I've admired, who I probably met in some way, shape, or form, even through maybe reincarnation before. I told you to be a monk in my former life, and may I met this gentleman in past meetings. But I've always admired his work. And the great thing about when you're in the industry, you see somebody's body of work, you wonder how they got there, what made them tick. And this man is no different. He is currently the general manager at dcradio.gov. He is president at Maxx Myrick Enterprises, LLC. Best known here in Chicago as the former operations manager / program director at WVAZ V103 Radio here in Chicago. As I said in the bio online, his resume is too much to type. I would have got a finger cramp, but it would have been worth it. So instead of me having finger cramps, let's go right to the man himself. Please welcome to CBI Chris Bass Interviews, Maxx Myrick. Maxx Myrick, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Thank you very much. What an intro.
Hey, you more than deserve it, man. Well, first of all, let me publicly thank you. Maxx Myrick is the most consistent brother that says happy birthday to everybody online. And so every time I look up during my birthday, September 4th, he always has I guess a decent picture of me. I don't turn anybody to stone because the way I look. He has a decent picture of me. Happy birthday goes along with someone. Publicly thank you, because that's a good sentiment. I thank you for that, brother.
Very welcome. It's the way I start my day every day. It makes me feel good, and it just reminds me of the people that mean something to me.
Well, we definitely feel that, because you mean something to a lot of us. Now, first and foremost, let me go along, because I don't really have a structure of how the questions come. It just come between listening to you and going from there. So just the basic stuff. So where were you born?
I was actually born in Ohio. I was born in a little small town between Toledo and Cleveland called Sandusky, Ohio, right on the lake. And I grew up moved to Toledo when I was about maybe 3. And I grew up in Toledo. And I stayed there until I went away to the Marine Corps, came back, went to college, and I stayed there until 1985, and then I've been moving around and living in other cities since then. Chicago, I was there for about a decade. And, when I was growing up in Toledo, Chicago was our weekend place to go. We'd be down on Halsted on Sundays, shopping, barbecue. Yes. And we have relatives and friends. So, Chicago's like my second home.
Well, tell us more about Toledo, because me watching television, watching MASH, the only character I knew that went to Toledo was Max Klinger at the time. So that's all I knew of Toledo. But tell us your experience of growing up there, going to high school there. You went to the University of Toledo, I presume, right?
Yes.
Yeah, what was that experience like, of course, all that time?
Toledo is a medium-sized city, Ohio City. It's near Detroit. It's right outside of Detroit, which means it's right outside of Canada. So we grew up listening to music from Canada. Actually, CKLW was our station that we listened to a lot, because we didn't have a black radio station in Toledo until 1968. And then it was a part-time station. that eventually evolved into a full-time station. It was an FM station, and nobody cared about FM back then.
Right.
So we were lucky that it was an FM because it gave us a advantage. A lot of black radio stations during that era were on AM. So our audio was great, and our reach was great. And I grew up listening to, once we did get a black radio station, I grew up listening to that station. And eventually, when I came back, when I got out of the Marines and enrolled in the University of Toledo, they had a college campus radio station, WERC. And I got a chance to get on that station. And while I was there, I met a guy who would turn into a lifelong friend and a roommate while I was in college. His name was Michael Stradford. And Mike knew one of the DJs, a guy named Michael St. John at WKLR. That was a station. And Michael St. John got my air check to Gary Outlaw, who was the program director. And then I got a part-time job at the station and eventually got a full-time job. And got a chance to work with the people that I grew up listening to. So that was my professional start. That was in like 1977.
What is the magic for you, Max, when it comes to radio? And I ask all radio people this, because something obviously had to draw you to that medium and the medium in general. What drew you to it?
Well, listening to CKLW, that was a big radio station. I mean, it was, they called it the Big Eight. And they gave weather in 3 different cities. That's how big it was. They gave weather in Cleveland, Toledo, Detroit, and then they gave it in Canada, in Windsor, in Celsius. It was bigger than life. It was owned by RKO at the time, which was one of the giants. And all the jocks there were just magical. And so it captured my imagination. And music was a big part of my growing up. My mother was, a music fan. And so we listened to the music that was in the house. And then once we got our own radio station and we got jocks that started to sound and look like us, then we were turned on to even more music that we hadn't heard on CKLW, like the blues and jazz. And, back in the 70s, radio played everything because there was only one station. So you had to play everything, which was great. So I got my palette was really broad because I listened to the station out of Canada, but I also listened to my local station. So that's what really drew me. It was the personalities and the music.
Tell us the importance of listening to someone that sounded and looked like you, because I remember when Oprah Winfrey was on television, she mentioned about growing up and, say, for example, the old Ed Sullivan show, and the Supremes would be on, and they'll go around, hey, color people on TV. And color people on TV at the time, and they would go to somebody's house and watch the Supremes or anybody that was African American on television. Yes. Tell us the significance of that from your perspective.
Oh yeah, that was a big deal when I was a kid. Anytime somebody black was on television, everything would stop. We make appointments. They do those Ed Sullivan promos, and we know that James Brown's going to be on Sunday night, and we'd all be camped out there in front of our black and white television. And catch those, few moments that we got a chance to see somebody who sounded like us. The music that we heard, we got the chance to see that person, visually. I remember when I met the first time I met a DJ was a guy named Ted Richards. He was on CKLW. And I was stunned because all the DJs, because they were in Detroit, because Windsor's across from Detroit, the DJs at CKLW were pretty hip. So they sounded black. They had a cat named Brother Bill Gable. So I was expecting a black person. And this guy that looked like Clint Eastwood is with a suit on. I was stunned. So, I wasn't disappointed. I was surprised. So, but then when I met, who was the first one I met? Probably my hero, a guy named Chuck Welch. I met him, and he looked like, like one of my uncles. He had the afro, and he had that big booming baritone. He was hip, and he sounded great on the radio. I could relate to him. I wanted to be just like him, and that was my first interest in radio. It was being on the air, and eventually it evolved into something else.
We'll go to the peanut gallery, I call it the comment section here. They must have knew you were showing up because they're coming in droves here, saying hello to you and everybody else. Let's say, what's up, Dr. Ross? How you doing, Dr. Ross? Is out here. What's up, Keith Peterson? Keith Peterson is a former student of mine I taught at Illinois Media School. So good to see him here. How you doing, brother? Ellie, Ellie, how you doing? Thank you for being here. Our brother broadcasting, Al Greer.
Oh yeah, hey Al. I know Al.
Absolutely, everybody knows Al. Shoot, if you ain't nobody. If you don't know Al Greer, you ain't somebody. So, so there you go. What's up, Al Greer? Yeah, he's the man. Absolutely. Let's see. What's up, Barbara Jean? Wednesday greetings from Chicago. Barbara Jean is also a great person to this program. Dr. Ross, this is a great trip down memory lane. And then my man Jed, what's up, Jed? From the West Coast there in the Bay Area, says, I love that about radio. Imagining the personality, only having them in your mind, the shock of seeing them for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's a good shock.
It's a good shock, yeah. And they had, when I came back from the Marines, they had a guy named Brother Bill Slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Bill was younger. He was a college student. So he really sounded like us. And not only that, but we could see him every day at school. So he was famous to us. And, you could talk to him. I mean, it was, it was a big deal. Most people will never meet what most people consider a celebrity.
True, that's true.
So the DJs provided that to us. They were our celebrities.
Yes.
I actually went on the radio for the first time when I was 14.
Mm.
I was in high school, and they had a teen reporter slot where you go on and talk about what is happening at all the different high schools around town.
Mm-hmm.
And I gathered up all of that information and went on every Thursday, an afternoon drive, and did the report. So that it kind of whet my appetite. And then when I came back, I pursued it.
There's nothing wrong with that. Let's go back out to the peanut gallery. What's up, Rockadilla? Nelson Rockadilla says, good afternoon, Graham Bass and Maxx Myrick. Max, we met briefly at Art Porter's Memorial. What was your greatest memory of AP? So let everybody know your time here at V103. We'll get into that as we go along the interview. To me, and I'm very biased, because I didn't meet Art Porter till, unfortunately, after my wife Vicky passed away. But I always knew of AP. No, if you didn't know, once again, like Al Greer, you know these people. And Art Porter was the producer of producers. He set the bar so high. As my man Nelson just typed in, tell us about the greatness of our late brother Art Porter.
AP, he was I can't even measure how great he was. He was just a great guy, great human being, first of all, great father, great husband, great friend, and great professional. Art was resourceful. He knew everybody. He was easy to get along with. He was easy to work with. And he did some incredible things. I mean, he, could get the president of the United States on the phone. AP could get to anybody.
That's right.
The reason that Michael Baisden, if your audience is familiar with Michael Baisden, ever even got on the radio was because we had a show. Originally, it was the morning show that had John Mons on it. When we first, this is like right around 1993, brought in John Mons to replace the great Richard Steele, who went on to do some other things. And so John needed some help. So we went and got George Wilborn, who was the host at a club on Wabash called All Jokes Aside. It was one of the top comedy clubs in America. Everybody came through there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got George, and then Bonnie DeShong was well known in Chicago, was at WGCI. So we went and robbed them. And we put this great morning show together. And then over time, we had an opportunity to get Tom Joyner and Doug Banks from GCI, our competitor, because we put on a hip hop station, the 106 Jams. So when we did that, we also had AP. When we switched the show to afternoon, AP became the producer, full-time producer. And AP just had everybody on there. And one day he said, we got this guy named Michael Bays, and he's got this little flyer or some book, you know. So they put him on, and he was saying all the things that the guys wanted to say, but we didn't really want to say out loud.
Right.
So he was a guy that women love to hate.
Right.
It was great radio, and it was it was fun. They would call up and give him a hard time, and he was the devil's advocate. He loved that role, and that's how he got his start. Prior to that, he was driving a train. He was driving CTA. So we were able to do that as a result of our Porter and any number of things over time. It was so sad when he passed.
It was.
And when I went to the ceremony out in Oak Park, his brother Oscar spoke, and
Yes.
Oscar and AP are twins. It was haunting because Oscar sounds and looks like AP.
I know, right?
Man, it was something. The whole church was in tears. Yeah, AP was a great guy.
I was there too. It was you're right, it was very haunting. And again, I ran into his brother Oscar years prior when unfortunately Herb Kent passed away.
Right.
And I'm signaling who I thought was Art, but it was Oscar. I never knew he had a twin brother either till that experience.
Right.
Couldn't find out that, like you, I found out they had a twin brother. And then at AP's memorial, I was good. You try to hold on emotional wise, but I never forget. It's etched in my brain now. When Oscar said, "How do I go on?"
Yep.
That everybody I think lost at that point. And so just the camaraderie and the love you have for not only a brother, a twin brother.
Yeah.
You share clothes with and the bed with and everything with all together just breaks your heart. But AP was that guy. He really was.
That guy. And we had a great team. I mean, that's has to be the greatest team I've ever worked with. And I've worked with some great people, some great mentors over the years. And I worked with some very talented people. But that time in Chicago, that family of professionals on both on and off the mic was just something that I'll never forget, and something that we're all still close today. I was just in Chicago a couple of weeks ago to see my granddaughter, and I ran into 3 of my former colleagues, and it was just like no time had passed. That Chicago love is a different kind of love.
No, you're right. And like most of us, when you remember, because I was a WBMX head for a long time. And then when the guy that everybody made the shift to V103, I was in my grandmother's parking lot in my old jalopy. I mean, sitting there, because only had AM radio, and it used to be on AM, and then the music stops. And then it went right into V103. And, I wasn't that dejected. I mean, it hurt. I'm in college. I love radio, so I decided to give V103 a try. And it was great because it was different. It was eclectic. What you said, it was very special. And one of my great friends, who I went to high school and also Columbia, and also a broadcaster, Ken Smith, at the time was doing Shallow Traffic.
Yep.
So I'm supporting him. And just to hear him say, I'm Ken Smith for Shadow Traffic on V103, I'm supporting my man. So
Yeah.
all those components, and plus knowing the talent that was on there, you're
we
right.
Had,
and it was just great, to say the very least.
All those Hall of Famers, now Hall of Famers we had on there. We Joyner, Herb Kent. Who else is in the Hall of Fame that was on V103? Maybe just those two.
Mm-hmm.
But still, just the level of talent and we were so successful. I mean, that is the station that invented the urban AC format. There was no such thing as urban AC until
That's true.
1988, and I signed the station on. I was the first person on the air. At that time, I was on the air. I was doing, and it was the first station that was designated at urban AC. And once we became successful with that format, then other stations started trying it, and then it became acceptable and acknowledged by Arbitron at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history. How many years later? It's just, we wanted to make that station aspirational. Because I grew up listening to CKLW, and everything they did was bigger than life.
Yes.
Because we had the resources and the support. Don Moore was our general manager. First, Barry Mayo was the former owner, who invented the format, actually.
Right.
But then Don Moore came, and he gave us the resources. Whatever crazy stuff we could think of, he would make it happen and figure out how to monetize it. So we had a great sales team.
Yes.
We had great talent. And so we did everything. We just tried to make it. We just kept trying to make it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And we had fun picking on Elroy and WGCI. Elroy is our nemesis over there at GCI. So it was a great battle, classic battle,
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, we just had a wonderful time. It was just a great, it was great. And then, at a certain point, you become so successful that, other people want in on the action. And once that happened, then I left and went to XM satellite radio and started all over again, a whole new format that I had never done. I just, I believed in the technology. I was an investor in the company. Mm-hmm. And when they asked me what, if there was another format that I was interested in, I told them jazz. And they asked me, could I build a jazz radio station? And I said, yes. And so I modeled real jazz after WJZZ in Detroit, because that was the station I used to listen to when I was, in college. And they were the best sounding jazz station I had ever heard. They're probably the only jazz station, real jazz station I heard with that kind of sensibility, that kind of stationality. They were just hip. They were just, it was what I imagined a jazz station to be. So we took that template and added it to this new technology, and then the Real Jazz Channel still exists on now Sirius XM on channel 67. 23 years later, it's the number one jazz station in America, in North America, actually.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Back to the Peanut Gallery. What's up, Tabitha Carson says, I love my DJs. Great show. Thank you, Tabitha, for the kind typing there. Deeply appreciated. Love my man, Rick McCain. I was on Rick McCain's panel last night with him and his lovely wife, Brenda, like a men versus women thing. I think the men won. So we'll take that victory. So thank you, Rick, for being here. Go back to says, Bonnie's my girl. Well, let's think about these personalities. Go back to Bonnie and Sean. Bonnie is everybody's girl. It's that sister girl that is relatable, that, hold the whole. I can never do the hey baby the way she does. That's why I make fun of when I say hey baby and leave it alone. Right, that's exactly right. But it's so connectable. When did you get involved as becoming programming operation manager at V103? When did you get that call?
Well, I worked my way to V103 in 1988. I was in Louisiana at the time, and I got it was a tough year for me. I worked at a lot of radio stations before I got to Chicago. I mean, I started in Toledo, then Cincinnati, then South Carolina. I put a station on in Toledo. I put a station on in South Carolina. I made a station in Shreveport, Louisiana, #1. Then I went to V103 on the air, and they fired me right before Christmas. I was not that good.
Okay. So you admit that one.
Yeah, I wasn't that good. Not at that level. And so then I went to Richmond, and we put on the first satellite radio station in the United States in 1989. Then I went to Cleveland, and then I went to Atlanta. I put another station on. Then I put another station on in Pensacola, Florida. I almost quit a couple times. I almost quit in Cleveland, and I definitely was almost going to quit in Pensacola. I was like, how did I end up here?
Now, what was your reason for almost quitting?
Well, I just had given up. I was like, I can't. I had a family, kids, trying to commute, and not making money. It was hard,
Yes, sir.
And so I just. But every time I got ready to quit, somebody would make me. I would get a call, and I said, "Okay, let me try one more time." And so, in Pensacola, I was about to quit. It was a sad year. I was living in a hotel on a beach, which was nice at first.
Yeah,
I was living on the ocean on it, but after a while, it was. You've heard all about Florida.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. After a year of that, I was like, this is. And then I got a call to come back to Chicago as music director this time.
Okay.
And so I, immediately loaded everything in my car and drove to Chicago. And then after about a year, the program director, Ron Atkins, quit. And so I was forced to run the station because you can't somebody's got to run the station.
Exactly.
And so at the same time, we were signing on 106 Jams. So I was involved in that too. So, I had to do both stations for a while. Mm-hmm. And during that period, V103 went to #1. So then I got a raise.
I know, right?
So I didn't even really want the job, though. I just wanted to stay and do music. I didn't want the pressure or the headache. But there was a sales manager there named Kirby Caden who convinced me to take the job, and I did. And they brought in a new general manager. This company was sold. And he saw the results of my work and told me that he didn't know anything about radio. He had come from Johnson & Johnson. He was a marketing and finance person. Mm-hmm. More. He said, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it, and I'm going to give you another raise. So those 2 raises convinced me to, stick around.
I know, right? That's
because
great.
My dream was to come to Chicago and have a #1 station. So I had achieved my dream, and then the money cemented it, and then everything went up from there.
Well, it's funny when you mention things like I didn't want the job, but obviously the job was for you. You just didn't know it yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens is you put in your time and you learn. And fortunately for me, even though I had to go to all those markets and do all those things, I got a chance to build radio stations. I got a chance to try things. I got a chance to learn the science of it. I got a chance to learn how to do it without resources, so that when I got to back to Chicago, where I had all the resources in the world, I was more than ready.
There you go.
So
and that's exactly what it is. I mean, all those experiences led you to that time in Chicago, because the thing about it, if you didn't have those experiences, you kind of feel like a lightweight. But because of what you went through, there's a reasoning why that happened to build you to that day.
Yeah. And I'm glad I didn't give up. you know, and it gave me an opportunity to provide things for my family and my children that I otherwise probably would not have been able to do, you know, doing a normal job because, you know, they went to some really good schools. They had a good, you know, they grew up in a good setting.
Hmm.
You know, even though I was not there as much as I wanted to be because I was, you know, making the donuts.
There you go.
But there were some good donuts.
Very, very. I mean, probably some of the best donuts they ever had. Let's see if Dr. Ross says, "What a journey! It's a fantastic journey. It's a very inspirational journey." As you hear Max talk about, go back again to further into the comment section here. So Jamie Martinez, Professor Bass, another former student of mine. The students are coming out in droves. Thank you. He's now working professionally in radio in Phoenix, Arizona now. Thank you, Jamie. I'm very proud of you, brother. Keep up the great work. Let's see who else out here. Sick Diggy. Sick is all the way out to from Normandy. Says good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Of course, the line from the Jim Carrey movie. So it's always good to have Sick here as well. And so Rick asked the question, why is it so hard for a radio show to get a major radio networks today?
Well, I think everything's consolidated in around 1999. The FCC allowed for the consolidation of radio. So now the radio stations are, especially black radio, but all radio, are owned by 2 or 3 companies. Basically, Odyssey, Cumulus, Radio, Urban One, and I don't know who the other one is right now, but it's 3 or 4 stations.
Yeah.
Companies that own all the stations. They own all the syndication too. So they just put their content on all their stations. So that doesn't leave an opportunity for new content to get on those stations. But the internet does give people an opportunity, unfettered. And I tell people this all the time. The internet is where the stars of tomorrow are coming from, and they'll be bigger than the stars of today ever were. The Breakfast Club is a great example. Now, I know they're on the air in New York. I've never heard their show. I only know them from online.
Right, same here.
And they're in the Radio Hall of Fame. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, see, now that's a sore spot.
But
yeah,
I'm just saying that's what the internet radio is just distribution, right?
Correct. Yes.
It's just a distribution mechanism, distributing commercials, distributing music, distributing messages. And so they have, the radio has gatekeepers to determine what gets distributed. The internet doesn't have gatekeepers. You can do things on the internet that you can't do on the radio. You can cuss, you can go as long as you want.
Right.
You can do you. And the key is to do you and find an audience, and then connect with that audience, and build from there. Engage with that audience. Look at this guy during COVID. This comedian named Country Wayne.
Yes.
He just started doing skits on the internet, and now he's rich from that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and the internet just gives you all kinds of opportunities. If I were starting now and I couldn't get in the radio, I would go online. You reach more people.
True.
Because you can reach the whole world. There are no limits to what you can do. If this had been around when I was coming up, I certainly would have been on it. I would have been
big time.
Who knows, you know what I mean? Who knows what would have happened?
Exactly.
But it exists, and while it's available, while it's open, because at some point they're going to try to figure out a way to put some limits on it.
You
They
you
just
got ahead of me. I was just ready to ask you that. Do you think down the road that the government, no offense to government, will they
Yeah.
start putting restrictions on the internet?
Yeah, they're going to make up some kind of crazy rules because they don't like people having a voice.
Right.
They don't like people talking back. They don't like people, contradicting their propaganda.
That's true. That's so true. Look back into the comment section. I stand correct. I'm sorry, Stick. It's Norway. No, it's not Normandy. My bad. So that's what happens when your brain turns to peanut butter. So I'm very sorry for giving the wrong country where you are. So it's Norway. My bad. Let's see. Also, everybody out there, you want to call in to our guest. The number is right there available. It's 312-597-2106. Again, the phone number is 312-597-2106. Call in. You have a comment and questions for my guest here, Mr. Maxx Myrick. Back out to the comment section. Okay, well, let's see what we got here. So that's Nelson again. How do you get businesses to buy into internet radio if you're doing sales for an internet station?
Well, I think most, like everything else, you have to have metrics. You got to show them show a client what's in it for them. If you tell a client you can reach either this quality of audience or this quantity of audience, preferably both, then they're going to be willing to risk their capital to reach those people. That's why you see a lot of people put up these little short content, and then they have commercials running adjacent to them. They're making money off of that. So it's the same thing. It's just about how many people can you bring to the table. If I'm going to spend my money, I need to, see a return on my investment.
Makes all the sense in the world. I want to go over some of your educational background. I find it fascinating while I was doing the research on it. So, you had studied at the Broadcast Leadership Training Program at the National Association of Broadcasters Educational Foundation. Now that's a mouthful right there. So I know you got into the program and got out as soon as you can, because I'm tired just by reading it. So how did you get involved in that, sir?
Well, the Broadcast Leadership Training Program is a program that was created by a lady named Diane Suter at the National Association of Broadcasters. It was created to find minority and women broadcasters who they felt would be future leaders and future broadcasters. So they wanted to find them, give them training. It's an executive MBA program. It takes about a year to complete. And you come into Washington, D.C. once a month and for 2 or 3 days. And it's a very submersive and hands-on program, but you get the total inside look at what the business is about. You get to meet the money people. You get to meet the FCC commissioners. You get to meet everybody that's involved in the broadcast business, television and radio. And then then once you become a graduate of that program, a lot of the people that are in those programs are already station owners and general managers of radio stations. I was probably the only, in my class of 2010, I probably was the only radio programmer. And the reason that I got into that program was I wanted to create an online platform that, this is before Spotify and all of these streaming services. I had been paying attention to what was going on online, and I saw that there was a lot of stuff online, but you had to look for it. So what I wanted to do was create a online platform for Black people, for all the different forms of Black music, all the different forms of Black content, video and literature, and put it all in one place, so that people didn't have to search all over the place before. But keep in mind, this is before streaming.
Correct.
So I was able to get a fellowship So all my expenses were paid. And then I completed the program. But once I got into the program, I found out a couple things. You know how you have this fantasy that you want to own a radio station?
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes. So, you know, that fantasy was, they blew that up. I realized that it would not, you know, it wasn't going to be a dream that I would be willing to undertake, because it's hard for an individual station to compete against a corporate cluster of radio stations as a standalone. There are very few of them. There's one in DC, WHUR, but that's a unique situation. In Kansas City, KPRS, you know, but there are very few of them, because what happens is they sell as a cluster. So if you got a 6 share and they have 5 shares, they got a 30 share.
Right.
To sell against you. And the bottom line is ratings and revenue. So and then, you know, getting the financing. If you borrow money from somebody, it's not your station. It's not your station.
That's true.
And so it was not something I wanted to do. But I also found out that doing the streaming thing, the rights to air songs, is so expensive that to get the money to do it, you would need, you could probably get the money to do it, but once you get to a certain level, once you get like over 1 million subscribers, for example, then 30% of your revenue goes to content. And that's a big chunk out of your, you know, operational budget. So I was ahead of my time in my thinking, and you know, somebody else did it. They still haven't done it the way I wanted to do it, but it's being done, and people, you know, are listening to these streaming services now, Spotify, Pandora, Pandora's owned by the people that own SiriusXM, that own Live Nation, that own Ticketmaster. They just own everything.
Right. I know. Right.
You got to be, you know, it's a public company, so you can't compete against that.
No, you can't. I mean, you go back to what you said about the cluster and the shares coming together total wise to say there was 666 in here and 7 there, you know, with a 30 share. It's like old adage, you can't fight City Hall. It really is impossible to go up against it. So it's one of those situations where you can give it the gallant effort, but at the end of a verbal day.
I mean, you can make, you know, it depends on your business model. So if you can get a station for a low enough price, right, and your debt service, the money that you have to pay back is low enough, you can create a unique station, right? And you only need a 3 share. A 3 share of 1 million people is what, 300,000 people, or
right,
something like that. That's a pretty nice size audience. You could sell that audience, and if you could sell enough commercials and do enough events and create a digital footprint just for that specific audience, and find a group of advertisers that's interested in that specific audience, and you have a unique product, unique content, and a unique product, you could do it. But it's hard to do that. I mean, you try to get into Chicago, I mean, a market that's number 3, it costs you $80 million to get a radio station in Chicago.
And, right, but see, like you said before, I like the concept we just talked about, creating a unique station.
Yeah.
But look how much money you said just to get it up started, just to get it up and running.
Yeah. And they don't want, you know, the investors, they don't want to hear about your problems. They want to know 2 or 3 things. First of all, they want to know, how much money am I going to make? Because I'm going to need about 40%. That's off the top.
Right.
Then they're going to want to know, how big is this thing going to be? And the last thing they want to know is, when am I getting my money back? If you can't answer those questions, they want to know. You got to have an entry plan and an exit plan. They only work in 5-year increments. That's all they think about. And if you can't answer those questions in an elevator pitch fashion, keep moving.
Yeah, keep it moving, doctor. Yep, Rick. Yeah, you heard right. $80 million.
Yeah,
80 million. Yeah, that's it.
but
Let's see.
I mean, we were doing about 30, almost 30 million in Chicago a year in revenue. I'm talking about we were doing 30 million. We had a 50% return. So we were doing about 15 million profit, and we had a double-digit increase every year. That's why those people wanted those stations.
Oh, yes.
Because they were making all that money.
Yeah, you start to create the pie. Instead of having slices, you create the whole pie itself by adding on those.
Yeah, and then once again, there's scale. So they buy all the stations. They bought us, they bought GCI, they bought Light, they bought NUA.
Yep.
Now they got everything. And then the NUA was getting in the way because they were sharing audience with us. So they just got rid of them. So it made our numbers bigger.
Amazing. That's amazing how that works. Another thing I was interested in your educational background. So you also studied psychology at Yale University. How'd you get to Yale?
I did. I took some courses. I've always been interested. When I was in my undergrad, I did psychology.
Okay.
And so it's just an extension of that. And I took some courses over there and picked up a certificate, and I get to say that I went to Yale. That's all.
Oh, look, it works. But the thing about the psychology, even said before, it was your undergrad, that had to have working with a lot of personalities, of course, in the business.
Yeah, it has. I mean, the more education you have, the more you learn, the better you are. I mean, education, and you see all these books back here. I'm always learning. I never stop learning. I'm always, I'm just internally curious about stuff. But yeah, I mean, you have to use a degree of psychology on high-powered personalities, because you have to constantly motivate them. They're making a lot of money, making more money than you're making. So you got to be able to get them to do things and see how it benefits them. And so I guess that psychology plays its part in that. Herb Kent was a giant. I mean, just a giant among giants. And Herb just wanted to know that he was appreciated. And we did that. We showed him. We got him in the Radio Hall of Fame.
Sure did.
He was the first Black person to get in the Radio Hall of Fame.
Herbert Rogers Kent. Let's go to the phones. The man that was also in the comment section, also my brother in broadcasting, the one and only Nelson Rockadell. What's up, Knock or wherever I call your ass. Rockadell, how you doing, man?
I love you too, Grand Bass.
Love you more, man. Say hello to Maxx Myrick.
Mr. Myrick, yes. How you doing, sir? How you doing?
Good talking to you. Doesn't Chris have a great voice?
Man, you know what? I told him if God gives me a radio station, he would be the voice of the station. He'll be the next Earl James Jones. I know I'm saying it wrong.
James Earl
Jones.
Too.
Yeah, him too.
Yeah, I wish I had a voice like that.
Yeah, all that bass, and he just projects so strongly, even when he doesn't attempt to. It's just natural.
Mm-hmm.
It's just natural. But I'm only calling for one question. And we did meet. At AP's homegoing service. We met. We took a picture together and everything.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Okay. So my question is, if there was something that you could change from today's radio and replace it from radio that was going on in the 80s and 90s, what would you change?
I would change the you used to be able to go to a market and every market would sound like that market. Chicago would sound like Chicago. Memphis would sound like Memphis. Detroit would sound like Detroit. Everybody sounded like that city, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But now everything sounds the same wherever you go. I mean, Chicago's a little unique because V103 still engages with the steppers community. I'm not sure about the house music piece, but which is a Chicago thing. But I would put that back if I could. I would let every station be what made them what they are, instead of what made them become made them what they were before they became what they are now. Because I remember going to Memphis, WDIA in Memphis, the first black formatted station in the United States. It's an AM station, 50,000 watt AM. It was like number one up until just a few years, literally up until the 90s. I mean, early 2000s, when the consolidation people got their hands on it. And I was in Memphis expecting to hear some blues, because that's what DIA is. And I turned on DIA and I heard Kool and the Gang. I can't even express the disappointment I felt. I mean, nothing wrong with Kool and the Gang, but not on DIA.
Right.
Wow.
And it's happening that way. I mean, you go to a city, you don't know what city you're in. They all sound the same.
Yeah, and that's the sad thing. They're taking away the classic identity of each city.
Yeah.
What makes them unique, what makes them sound different from their counterparts. But then everybody sounds the same. It's all cookie cutter. I mean, it's like I could have stayed home. I mean, that was the great thing about AM radio back in the day. You can go across with 50,000 watts, go across and hear different stations from Philadelphia and New York and LA and everything else. And everybody sounded different. But nowadays, it's not even a shadow of what it used to be. It's completely, everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody sounds the same.
Because they're all programmed. They have central programming. So they have somebody at the top that's telling the people locally what to play.
Right.
And then it just trickles down. I mean, it's sad. They need to relinquish, as long as the station is winning, because that's the bottom line. They need to reinstate local controls to these stations.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I don't see it happening, but yeah, I think it's one of those situations where we crossed the point of no return, and we're not going to get back to that. But I think this is why, Max and Rock, that you see the emergence of streaming, the emergence of podcasting, the emergence of individuality, because those individualities are gone from the, say, brick and mortar radio stations. Now it's in the cloud or it's on your phone like anything else, where you can get individual and you can search for it and find it. And that's what makes it great. The spice of life is not just everybody being the same. It's like everybody being different. And a taste of life is learning from different types of styles of people.
You can, listen to those streaming services and discover new music that you didn't know was out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can create your own content, your own playlist. And, the shares of radio, terrestrial radio, are going down because people have more alternatives.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, I got two more questions. All right, I've just been thinking. I've been listening the whole time, and but there's one question I think would be very interesting, unless you just know exactly what you would do. Who has, or if past, present, on their talents? If you can make that one dream team from every day part, from morning to quiet storm to overnight.
Hold on a second. Stop.
Yes.
Stop. First of all, you stole my damn question. I had this written down. This morning. I kid you not. And so it must be only because it's you. Only because I've known your ass for a long time. I'm going to let you ask. This was my question. I wrote this
sorry,
down. But
I can answer that. I can
And
answer,
we didn't even talk.
no, we didn't even talk at all. But tut, King Tut. Not a
I can
problem.
answer,
No.
I can answer
I'm
that.
going to let you ask the question. Give it to Mr. Maxx Myrick. But I'm telling you, goddammula, I wrote this question this morning. The exact same one. So go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
I'll tell you what. You go ahead and finish the
No,
rest of
it's
the
too late
question.
now. No, it's too late. No, you put out the ether already.
Question easily.
Yeah, he said, okay, you ask the question easily. So
Easily.
Go ahead, right ahead.
The dream team we had at V103 in Chicago, when I was in Chicago, I put that team up against anybody, anywhere, anytime.
And give us those names again, please.
In the morning, we had Tom Joyner. In middays, we had Shirley Hayes. And we also had Emily McKendall, and we also had Denise Jordan Walker. In the afternoons, we had John Mons. We had Bonnie DeShong and George Wilborn, which, by the way, was the first comedian on a morning show in the country before Joyner. And then we had Mel Devon, Night Moves. Yeah. And then overnights, I believe we had Wally Muhammad. And
a communicator, yes.
So anywhere, and then on the weekends we had Herb Kent. We had Pam Morris. We had, I mean, our bench was deep. We had Kenny B. Thompson. I mean, anywhere, anytime, any market, I'd put that team up against anybody. And you know, I know New Yorkers think Frankie Crocker was the greatest, and he was great for New York. But this group of people they could win anywhere. Yeah, anywhere. It just so happens that they're one of the biggest markets in America, which is not easy to do.
I guess I'm surprised you didn't put Doug Banks in there somewhere. That's what I'm surprised at.
Well, I didn't have Doug on V103. We had Doug on 106 Jams. So not to exclude him, Doug was great too, but I didn't really work with Doug directly. He was really on our hip hop station.
Oh, that'll do for me. See, Grand Bass, you didn't make me forget my second question because you got so excited about the first question. The second question I had.
How in the entire blue hell that I made you forget your next question?
Because I was shocked by the answer that he gave of the lineup, the dream lineup, and didn't hear Doug's name in it. That threw me off because, you know, listening to Doug, and you know, and not a lot of people know that Doug was my cousin, but Doug didn't help me get in. I had to fight my way in to radio, and I learned so much just appreciating it once I got in there. But knowing that Doug, then of course you got, you know, Dee Dee McGuire and how strong her morning show is.
Don't get me started with Dee Dee McGuire. See, now you're gonna make me.
No, that's the question I was about to ask.
Can't take anything away from Doug. I just didn't have the privilege of working with him directly.
Right.
But I tell you what, and the reason that we got Doug in the first place for 106 Jams is because I wouldn't accept Tom Joyner unless we got Doug too. I wanted to strip GCI of their morning and afternoon show. I wanted them to collapse, which they did.
Yeah, they did. See, that's how you fight.
To my delight.
See, that's how you fight, Doc. That's how you do it. You want them to collapse. You want to kneecap them.
Yeah, you know, my bonuses were paid on being number one, number two. So what by any means necessary.
I guess.
I ain't gonna quote Malcolm X too. Though. That's my man right there. I'm saying. By any means, you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm telling you. See, this is the great thing about this conversation. Real quick before, do you have another question, Ron? Because I'm gonna say this is what I mean by the history of this medium. A lot of young people don't know it. They just have no idea. It's not their fault. But when you have shows like whether it's mine or anybody else's, you bring people on like a Maxx Myrick who can fill in the blanks of where you are at this point in your life, who you want to be, somebody personality wise. Of course, the game has changed through the internet. We got that, but once upon a time ago, before the internet, we just had brick and mortar radio stations. And so to hear what Maxx Myrick give this knowledge, you can't pay for this, man. It's priceless.
Yeah, most definitely.
Young people
Okay,
today,
one more last question, and I'm done.
So, real quick, what did you say, Max?
I said, young people today will never know the thrill of working in a house out in the middle of a cornfield and turning wading out in the snow and turning the transmitter on because it was an AM daytimer.
Preach.
Hey, I worked at Foxy WJFX in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I understand that feeling.
Yes.
Freezing your toes off, your microphone stand keep falling down, and you got a hood rig it so it can sit up right, and it's right in your face, and just start talking and having a good time, but make sure that you don't move suddenly and then it falls and everyone knows something happened.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hold on, Rock. Let me get a couple more comments from the comment section before we get your next question. Then we got to move on. So let's see. What's up, K Boogie? K Boogie says, "Great conversation, gentlemen. Thank you, Miss Boogie, for being here over at Chicago State." You said Chicago State broadcasting, K Boogie. Let me know about that. Also, Rick says, "Great show, very knowledgeable. Thank you so much." My man Jed says, "Never mess with a man on his own show." We love you, Bass. That's going back to the as Rock. That was somehow read my peanut butter mind and got that question out of him. So I'll give you a free pass. So the next question, the second, sure, not anything for you. But so the second question you have for Max, we continue on.
Okay, why is there seem to be a shortage of urban syndicated radio shows to you? Because it seems like there's so much talent still in urban radio, urban AC, probably more urban AC than it is hip hop format.
Well, like I said earlier, the companies that own all the stations also own all the syndication companies, except for AURN, and so they just put the people that they have working for them on their. They just syndicate them. Radio One or Urban One, they have Ricky Smiley, so he's on all their stations. He's on all their stations. Steve Harvey's being syndicated by Premier. He's on all their stations. So is I guess Keith Sweat. He's one of two. Keith Sweat at night. The Urban One also does distribution of, or Reach Media does distribution of the D.L. Hughley show. They do distribution of Ricky Smiley, and they have a show that was hosted by Al B. Sure, but I think it's now hosted by Ralph Tresvant. So they just put there's the stuff that they have. If there's a show that is gaining momentum and has some numbers out there, they might be interested in it. But you have to have a proven track record to get them to even be interested in you, and that's where the internet comes.
Yeah, that hurts because you have so many people that's talented and not given the opportunity.
Well, create your own opportunity. There's nothing stopping you from doing the internet. Like there's a network called the something Collective, and they have a bunch of syndicated programs on it. They have Will Downing. He has his own show. Marcus Johnson, Bob Baldwin, Angela Stribling. They are all distributed by this network, mostly on college stations. But they're out there. And, Will was doing this show before he got that distribution. He was just doing it and putting it up on SoundCloud and putting it up. You have to create your own opportunity, because if you wait on them, it may never come.
That is so true.
And if you get enough people, they'll call you. And then you have leverage.
Okay. I'm going to have to stretch it out a little bit more. Okay.
All right, go back to the drawing board and create your own thing.
Yeah, I guess, as I said, you may know everybody, but I guess to the point when it comes down to the powers that be, they don't see it that way. I guess, but I got it though. I got it and I understand it.
Chris, have you been over to? I was in Chicago. My friend Elisa McLaughlin took me over to Kennedy King, and their facility is amazing.
Oh yes, yeah. I was at the old one and the new one, so it is fantastic over there. In fact, Nelson's a former student at Kennedy King as well.
It's amazing. They have the sound stages, they have the radio department, they have performance venues. I mean, it's just it's like a I don't know how people don't know, aren't taking advantage of that.
No, you're right. It's one of those quote unquote hidden gems.
It is.
I mean, really, because they could do a lot more with that. I'm telling you, they're sitting on a gold mine.
It's amazing. I mean, and I work in the original BET building where BET was founded. So we have sound stages. We have three. We have a television network. We have three of them.
Yes.
We have 4 television networks. So we have sound stages and all that television side, along with the radio station and some other divisions. And their facilities are better than ours. It's amazing.
It really is.
I was blown away.
I know, right? It is great stuff over there. Hey, Rob, we got to take off, man. But thank you for stealing my question. And I will talk to you later. But good stuff, Doc, as always, man. I love you more, man. I'll talk to you later on.
Yes, sir. Nice talking to you again, Max.
Yes.
Chris, stay out of trouble, sir.
It's too late. I'll talk to you later. You take care, bro.
All right, I'm gone.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Let's see. So I asked Kate was she still in Chicago State Radio, the Chicago State University. She says, no, I'm not there at the moment. I plan to go back, though. I really miss it working on my MBA right now. Congratulations. Keep going. Keep going. That's good stuff. Let's see. Back out to the Peanut Gallery. What's up, Kelvin? Says, loving this show, Base. Does Mr. Myrick have a memoir or book? All these stories need to be documented.
I am working on one. I've been working on it for the last several years, and I keep getting stuck. But now that I have been introduced to Chat GPT, it is helping me in my quest to finish this book. I just kept getting, I get mired down in details, and I just start going off down the rabbit hole. But this is helping because I wasn't sure if I wanted to write the story about my radio career, which is an adventure. I've been doing this for 46 years now, or the whole story, from where I started, in the projects to now. It's quite a journey. So I think I'm going to tell the whole story.
I hear you.
Because I want my kids to have that,
have that legacy of who
your father is. Some things they don't know, but I want them to know.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with being that completely transparent. So how'd you get the gig where you are right now, working for dcradio.gov?
Well, like most of my jobs, word of mouth. It's all, it's about who you know. You got to be prepared when the opportunity comes. But I was operations manager for WHUR here in Washington, which is a commercial radio station that's been around for 50 years, owned by Howard University. And after I left there, I took a year off, and HUR had entered into a relationship with the city of Washington, D.C. to build a radio station for the city. And it just never got done. So the person that was the director at the time, Angie Gates, called me and asked me would I be interested in finishing this project. And 7 years later, here we are.
I'm telling you, your journey, as Dr. Ross typed in earlier, is amazing. I'm glad that you're going to do the book and to share it, not only, of course, with your family, but for the rest of us. who we consider you family for what you've done here in the city and beyond. And it's just going to be more than fantastic. Last question I have. First of all, you have to come back because you have so much damn knowledge. I got to bring you back to pick your brain some more.
Let me just say this.
Sure, go right ahead.
I have had, I've been very fortunate to have had some wonderful mentors, men and women, who have believed in me and have helped me. And I've been very fortunate to have worked with some very talented people. And I've been very fortunate to have been able to pass it on to some other people and help them in their careers. So all of those things make me who I am.
And that's who you are, sir. It's like Denzel Washington on a viral video about a year or so ago. You don't see a hearse with a U-Haul behind it.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I've got 2 more projects under my belt that I'm working on, and then I'm going to move to Lisbon, Portugal, I think.
That's all right. Rick says I can listen to this brother all day. Same here, bro. It's just you know you're in the presence of greatness. I know earlier I used the word great. Max kind of shrugged it off, but it is what it is, Doc, because someone is obviously checking you out and listening and can be inspired, can see some commonality. And once again, I've known of you work for years, but just to have you on here really breaks down what it means to be a true radio professional. I'm telling you, I have no idea. It's one of those things that once again you can't put a price tag on it. What's up, Brenda Davis? Max is one of the best in the radio field. Amen and amen. Absolutely.
Oh, Brenda, that's my girl. Brenda was. We worked together in Toledo. She's wonderful and a great jazz lover too.
Nice. That's beautiful. Max, this has been more than great. Last question. First of all, you got to come back on because, again, we're just scratching the surface. Thank you, sir. Last question before I get you out of here. Mm-hmm. If you can invite 4 people to dinner, alive or not, who would they be and why?
Ooh, somebody asked me that before. One would be Louis Armstrong.
Interesting. I've never heard that before until now. Why Mr. Armstrong?
All American music comes through Louis Armstrong. All of it. So I would just like to sit in his presence and that's my office ringing in there. Okay, I think we're done. Hang on, I'm sorry. Louis Armstrong is like the first American international superstar. I mean, everything you hear comes from Louis Armstrong. And I would just like to just be in his aura. I've met 2 people who met him. Mm-hmm. They were older white women. One was an old 90-year-old Jewish woman in New York. She said she met him at the Cotton Club or somewhere in Harlem when she was a little girl. And she said he looked magical. Mm. She looked up at him and she said he looked like he was glowing. And so then I met a woman in Nashville in like 2008. And she said the exact same thing.
Man.
So that's one person. Mm. These are people I haven't met.
Mm-hmm. The people you have or whoever you want for dinner. So you got one person, you got Louis Armstrong, so you got 3 more.
Nelson Mandela. I have met Nelson Mandela. My children are actually named after Nelson Mandela. My 2 sons and my youngest daughter is named after Winnie Mandela.
Very cool.
We were really heavy into the anti-apartheid movement back in in the early 80s. So I'd like to sit with just to get the wisdom. my good friend Wynton Marsalis. I had a chance, the honor of working with a real genius in New York for 8 years, and he's just so wise and so earnest. I had to step up my game just to be around him, and I grew as a person. And who else? Those three off the top of my head. I was thinking about music the other day. If I had a list of artists that I could take with me to an island, and I could only take these artists, it would be like Michael Franks, Randy Crawford, Wynton Marsalis, Louis Armstrong, and Gladys Knight. And just that's all I could listen to for the rest of my life. I'd be good with that.
That's a good list. Now, which one now is it? Are you going to pick one of those? Now you got Armstrong, Louis Armstrong, Nelson Mandela, Wynton Marsalis. You got one more.
People that I've met so many people. Oh, I like to sit down with Barack Obama, President Obama. Oh, let me tell you a quick story about President Obama. When he was running for state office in Illinois, he came to the radio station one day, and Alderman Dorothy Tillman sent him over there, and nobody knew who he was. In fact, I thought his name was not Barack Obama. I said, okay. You know how people get those, their name be like Willie Jones one day, and the next day their name would be Shabazz X.
Right.
They're not really committed to it,
Correct.
So he came in. He was a really nice guy, very focused, very serious. And he said his name was Barack Obama, and we put him on AP scheduled him to be on the show with Cliff Kelly, the Sunday morning show.
Right.
And that was the end of it. I didn't listen to the show. We did the favor, and I still in my head said his name ain't Barack Obama.
Get out of town, right?
Get out of here with that. So then, I guess he lost that election, but then he won, and then he became a senator, and then he gave that speech, and it still didn't connect with me. Even it was a nice speech. I was like, that's nice. Who is this guy? Whatever. But then when he ran for president, that's when it connected. I was like, that's that same guy. I'd like to be able to tell him that story.
Now, see, that would be cool at the dinner, and to reconnect with Barack Obama. Just that table alone, man. I mean, and let me say this real quick about Louis Armstrong. I've been a fan of Louis Armstrong since I was a kid, and I've always loved his work. He was very unique and way before my time, but it was something, especially before about the word magical about him that I was drawn to. And even when I read about the fact of Billie Holiday, where she would sing her cadences was off the trumpet notes of Louis Armstrong.
Yes.
Amazing.
And Louis Armstrong got his, really became famous in Chicago when he came to Chicago. He's down there on the South Side. And that's where he, joined King Oliver and met his second wife. And that's when she convinced him to go out on his own and become the Louis Armstrong that we know. He, with the Hot Fives and Hot Sevens, recorded West End Blues, and that was what changed everything, West End Blues. But some of today's producers, I have figured that out. I mean, his phrasing, the side, nobody sang like that before.
No.
Billie Holiday, it's a straight line when you listen to that straight line that goes across. But I would listen to a song that Missy Elliott produced on Tweet. It's on one of Tweet's album, and she used Louis Armstrong's Starlight as a sample.
Yeah.
I was listening to it, and I'm like, wait a minute. Is that Starlight by Louis Armstrong? I mean, you have to dig in the crates to find that one.
I know, right?
But yeah, I mean, if there's a website out there called Who Sampled. Have you ever checked it out?
No, I haven't heard about that.
Check it out, whosampled.com. and it shows all of the samples, who they belong to, and who sampled.
I like that.
It's a really cool website.
Yeah, write that down.
I'm thinking about doing a show just based on that.
I like that. That's a good idea, Doc.
Because there's so much. I remember being in Atlantic City, and a young lady, Stevie Wonder song was playing, and the young lady wanted to know who was sampling Coolio.
See, yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens, man. This has been more than fantastic. Maxx Myrick, for more information about you, where can people find you at, sir?
I'm on all the socials. Maxx Myrick. I'm on. It's just what you see is what you get. Now my socials, I do random postings, so don't be surprised. Right now, I'm really focused on the atrocities that are going on in Palestine. So you'll probably see a lot of that. I just think that's so wrong.
It is. It is. It's I know some people's background when it comes to religion, but looks like last days to me. This is living in strange days.
Yeah, it's so wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah, it really is. Maxx Myrick, thank you for taking the time out to be here on CBI. We'll reach out back to you in the near future to come back on. Again, thank you for sharing everything with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm doing for hang on in the zone real quick. I want to talk to you off the show real quick, so hang on, okay?
Okay.
All right. Maxx Myrick, again, someone I've once again. How can you not be in radio and not know who Maxx Myrick is? And so it's one of those things like, man, when I get the show, I have a short list of people that I want to have on. I'm glad Maxx was able to come on with me. I'm glad I got a chance to check it out. Thank you for calling in, Nelson, and I thank you all in the Peanut Gallery for your comments and questions. Again, like I said before, history has no price tag. And so as we muddle along throughout the rest of the week, catch me on Saturday when we do Baseline. That's a Saturday morning show now. That's at 8 a.m. Eastern time, 7 a.m. Central, and the West Coast is too damn early. We let our people sleep. It's 5 a.m. out there. They got to get their Z's. They got to take their vitamins in the morning, things like that. So we let them sleep. If they happen to get up, scratch, and catch the program, fine. But our West Coast people, we show them love, and we don't want them to come to this program with sleep in their eyes. We don't want that. So more information about that show. Here's more information about that as we get out of here. Once again, thank you, Maxx Myrick. I'll catch CBI every Wednesdays, and that's at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. the West Coast. Continue to be safe, continue to be sound, continue to be healthy, and most importantly, above anything else, continue to be loved. Long live the peace, long live the funk, more power to you, and be kind.
Join the transporter to Hades.
Your butt and gut becomes one.
Join the reformer of hooker whores.
This is my daughter, Placenta Booty Johnson.
Join the bronze god.
Whenever you are in distress, take off your baseball cap and throw it in the air.
Join your very own superhero of broadcasting, Chris Bass.
So whatever color crown they get, they palm it and do 2 circles, and that translates to, I can be the black people.
As she takes you through the week's paces in Baseline. Live every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central, Pacific time zone people, just stay asleep when this is on live and just catch the recording. Exclusively on the Chris Bass YouTube channel.